Are you sick and tired of swiping left and right, feeling like you're in an endless loop of unfulfilling connections? Modern dating can feel like a minefield where genuine love seems elusive or out of reach. But what if you could turn the tide and not just survive the modern dating experience, but actually come to thrive? Build fulfilling connections, meet the right people, stop wasting your time, and really master the experience of dating in a way that helps you feel truly connected and fulfilled. Well, this video today is here to help you do just that, where we're going to talk about some of the challenges of modern dating, and then we're going to dive into 5 crucial pointers to being able to thrive in what we could even consider a hostile or at least very challenging environment. So, first and foremost, what do I mean by modern dating? Well, I mean navigating relationships in the digital age, because this predominantly involves having social media, virtual communication, dating apps, and really this boils down to rapid communication and instant gratification. It also means increased exposure to diverse potential partners, which you could make the argument has some benefits because you can come to learn what it is that you're looking for, but also has some drawbacks because sometimes rather than working through problems in a committed relationship, or the moment there's maybe an argument or disagreement a month or two into getting to know somebody, rather than building in that staying power and having that capacity to really move the needle forward and work through things, which is a crucial and key part of the human connection experience, it's much easier sometimes to just go look for that short term gratification all over again. Swipe on the next person, move on to the next individual because things are so convenient and it becomes so easy to do so. And funnily enough, there's sometimes this emphasis in the modern dating world more on like personal branding and online presence and how good your dating profile looks rather than things like values, morals, what kind of person you are, what you're truly looking for in a relationship with somebody, and really conveying that from an authentic point of view. And of course, when authenticity is missing, when intentions are missing, and when there's this lack of being able to have staying power and work through things, it can lead to a tremendous amount of chaos. So, some of the major drawbacks you'll end up seeing before we get into those key points of how to move the needle forward is number one, often you'll see people experience overwhelm from too many choices. On one hand, it can be beautiful to look at the modern dating landscape and be like, oh, I can learn about myself, learn what I do like, don't like, what I'm looking for. But when we're not intentional like that, we may just feel like there's an unnecessarily large degree of choices that can lead to things like decision fatigue and confusion, indecisiveness. You'll also generally see, unfortunately, some very superficial connections. People that tend to focus more on appearances and profiles and what they look like from this kind of personal branding point of view again, rather than fostering deep and genuine connections. You'll also generally see a tremendous amount of communication issues because it is so easy to misinterpret people when you don't know them that well just through text messages or through an online app. We miss all of the richness of communication. In fact, 93 to 94% of communication is nonverbal. So we get this little scraping of the surface, the tip of the iceberg of communication when we're only communicating in that verbal aspect of communication. That's really 6 or 7% of the totality of what happens when communication takes place in person. You may also see that for people who already have pre existing commitment issues or fears, they may have a greater reluctance to commit that may be magnified by the online dating world because, again, it just seems like there's so much variety and novelty. And on top of that, there can be a lot of pressure on people right now. Things like having this expectation of themselves to have this perfect social media profile or to say all the right things that win people over or to flirt in the most perfect way. And there can also be this fear of people ghosting or not following through because many people in the online dating world have had that experience sometimes constantly. So, with all of this being laid out here, all of this being said, what can we actually do? Well, there are five crucial things that you can dive into. And I will let you know that I actually have these mapped out in a much more in depth course you can check out fully for free just for a limited time. And I'll put that in the link below called How to Master the Dating Stage of Relationships. Now, I will tell you just briefly before we dive into these five things that the dating stage of a relationship is the first stage. After the dating stage, there is then the honeymoon stage if we actually make a commitment. And once we're in the honeymoon stage for about a year or so, sometimes a year and a half, we move into the power struggle stage where statistically most relationships end. But there are very secret and key ingredients to making it through the power struggle stage in a healthy manner and thriving and connecting more deeply because of it. And if we do that, we then move into the stability, commitment, and finally bliss stage, which is basically us being in the honeymoon stage in a sense all over again, but without the mask. We know somebody much more deeply by then. We know their fears, their flaws. We can take each other into consideration. There's so much I can say about the six stages of relationships, but this is not the video for that. That is in that Mastering the Dating Stage of Relationships course, however. But these are your five key pointers for beginning to thrive in the modern dating world. Number one, be intentional. Take the time to use the chaos of the modern dating world as a learning experience. Look for what you want to learn from each interaction that you have. You may look for what you like and dislike. You may look for what your standards are or your non-negotiables. You may look for the things that make you feel excited and interested in somebody and use it as an opportunity to learn about yourself. And as you're learning, you can become more and more intentional about what you're looking for so that you don't waste time on the wrong superficial interactions, that you're not waiting 2 weeks going back and forth on messages for somebody that if you were just intentional in the first place, you would realize already doesn't have the green flags that you're looking for to be investing in for a whole 2 weeks. So that's number one, be intentional for what you're looking for and use this as a learning experience. Number two, make sure that as you go through this experience, you also look for what triggers you. You're probably going to get triggered during your experience of online dating. It's probably going to be impossible not to be. But if you're in the experience of being triggered, there's a golden nugget there waiting for you. And what I mean by this is every trigger is an opportunity to gain insight into ourselves. There's a wonderful Rumi quote. It's one of my favorite quotes ever. And he says, "If I am irritated by every rub, how will I ever be polished?" And what he's referring to is that everything that rubs you the wrong way is an opportunity to gain insight into yourself. For example, if somebody isn't consistent about texting you back, that triggering event when you feel uncomfortable about it can be a key insight into, okay, maybe consistency is something that I really care about in relationships. Maybe that's something that can go on my intentions list. And I can actually be really clear about what I'm looking for in early days. So I'm not wasting my time. Maybe if you find that somebody texts too much and that triggers you, maybe you need to be better at communicating openly and managing people's expectations, saying things like, "Hey, I'm enjoying connecting with you, but I'm not interested in texting so much. Would you be okay with staying in communication, getting to know each other, but maybe just chatting briefly in the evenings?" The more that you can use everything that rubs you the wrong way as an opportunity to gain insight into yourself, to shift your behavior and your communication, you are literally propelling yourself towards growing in a very powerful way as a human being. And that way, anything that goes wrong in this modern dating world in your experience doesn't have to go to waste. You get the silver lining of growing each time you have a negative interaction. Number three, have some boundaries around this experience. Don't make modern dating and dating apps the focal point of your universe. That will make it so difficult. What we need to do instead is make sure that you are in a position where you're able to say, you know what, for an hour every evening at 7 till 8 p.m., I'm going to maybe spend 30 minutes interacting with people on the apps or whatever it might be, and 30 minutes journaling about my experience, being clear about what I learned, what my key insights or takeaways are, having this opportunity to build a relationship to modern dating with healthy boundaries. Now, that doesn't mean if you're like in communication with somebody that you can only talk to them between like 7 and 7:30 p.m. Of course, if you think that there's the right person to invest in, You can communicate with them in a way that makes sense to you. But before you're building those connections or have found somebody worth taking that relationship offline with, it's very valuable to just set boundaries so you don't end up spending hours in front of the TV while scrolling on an app and wasting some of your precious time away. Number four, have the ability to make sure that you are clear on your non negotiables. Non negotiables are really important. And I'm going to put number four and five together here because they go hand in hand and they're extraordinarily meaningful. Do not invest in somebody who has non negotiables. Okay. I can't tell you how many times when I was running my practice, or even sometimes in the personal development school, when we have people come in our programs, will say things to me like, "Yeah, I really wanted to have kids, and my partner really didn't want to have kids, and I just thought they would change their mind. I thought that I would just come to sort of win them over." And really, number five means don't date people's potential, right? Date who they are right now and have the self confidence and self esteem to recognize. And if you don't feel like you have this already, don't worry. Make this an art, make this a practice to recognize if somebody has things that are not okay with me under any circumstances. A non negotiable really means that by investing in that person, that you're basically betraying yourself and your long term vision, dreams, hopes, wishes, etc. So by investing in this person, if it's a self betrayal, you know, it's this idea of like you're investing to win somebody over. And it's more about like winning somebody over and that outcome than it is about you being true to yourself, knowing what you want, standing behind it, vetting people properly and effectively along the journey. And if you're not doing that, it's the perfect recipe to end up in the wrong relationship with the wrong person, disappointed and heartbroken later, and then going back to just repeating this vicious cycle. So make it a practice that you are going to be clear about what you're looking for, the learning experience behind this, even being mindful about those triggering events and how you can learn key takeaways from them, and making sure that you know your non negotiables and that you truly honor them, that you don't date people's potential, that you don't try to people please your way through your dating experience. Again, it's a great way to just feel like you're self abandoning and then end up in a relationship where you've abandoned your expectations and needs and you feel let down and heartbroken and it doesn't work. So, these are going to be really important things to stay on top of. I hope this is helpful for you. Again, if you want to do a much deeper dive into this, we have a whole course just about this, how to get really clear on your non negotiables, even some scripts and communication patterns to improve your communication in the modern dating experience. And let me know your modern dating stories in the comments down below. If there's something interesting, if there's something you have questions about, even if you just want to share a funny story, I would love to hear from you. And thank you for watching. Thank you for stopping by. If you're enjoying this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. And I can't wait to see you in the next video.